Hello, everyone. It's late in the night, but it was an interesting development, and I thought it's best to come and share it with all our subscribers. I know a lot of you getting up for that test match between India and Australia, where you're hoping that India can outsmart Australia and take a 2-0 lead. But before we get to the test match, which is going to take about 2, 3 days or 4 days to really decide who outsmarts who, we have news coming in from the BCCI versus PCB battle that was happening in the ICC corridors. It's lasted longer than a test match. But as I said, we don't know who's going to outsmart there, India or Australia. But what I can tell you here, BCCI has outsmarted PCB quite smartly at that by, there's this phrase in English, by having their cake and eating it too. What does that mean? I mean, if I was to say it in Hindi, uh, chit bhi mera, pat bhi mera. If I was to draw a comparison on that English saying and Hindi saying. Why am I saying that? Let me try and explain to you. There was this deadlock. I want this, you want that. The deadlock started with BCCI saying, no way we are going to Pakistan. Pakistan saying, no way are we going to agree for hybrid model. That's how it started. Then last week in the ICC meeting, against Pakistan's wishes and their ideal scenario, when they realized, when everyone else was sitting on the table, all other members were sitting on the table, I think PCB realized that they don't have too much bargaining power. So they took a step back. In fact, not one, they took multiple steps back, because from going from that stance where we'll take injury but not insult, they went in and agreed to the hybrid model. That was the start. And I think, uh, you know, that was a start where they faltered as well. So they take a start from their big stance, they go back saying, okay, hybrid model is done. But they came back with a counter offer. They came back with a counter offer saying that, okay, then do a few things for us, have a tri series with us. Also, for the next 7 years, when big tournaments are going to be happening in India, ICC tournaments, we're not going to be traveling to India to participate. To those demands also, BCCI has said, no, we're not going to be agreeing to those demands. So tri-series goes by. But to their one demand, that what happens in the next 7 years when we have to go there, then we also will not go. Give us things in writing. To that, the BCCI has played a real smart bargain. In fact, whenever you go to a market to bargain things, I'm very bad at bargaining. But if I ever have the opportunity of doing that, if I have to take somebody along, I'm going to take people from the BCCI, because I think they're masters at that. So listen, this is what they've done, which is how they've eaten their cake and they've had their cake and eaten it too. What have they done? So they said, no tri-series, not happening. Thank you very much. The other demand of what happens to when Pakistan has to come to India, what they've done is they said, listen, 7 years is too long a time. We can't look at 7 years, because that's where the important tournaments were also. So, including the Cricket World Cup that is going to, the 50 over World Cup, which is going to come back to India. They said, see, that's a big time. We can't commit that further, ahead into the future. So we are only going to look at the next 3 years. So the best we can do is the next 3 years, fine. If Pakistan feels unsafe to come to India, fine. For the next 3 years, we'll give you hybrid model as well. What comes in the next 3 years? One is the Women's Cricket World Cup. Again, I'm not, trying to compare men's or women's, and this is not about that. But I'm just trying to talk about commerce. So what BCCI realized, that if you were to take a Women's World Cup India Pakistan Women's World Cup game out of India, that's not going to cost them that much money, whether it is ticketing wise, whether it's broadcast wise, and that's a reality. Again, I'm not saying that one cricket is inferior than the other. That's not my point. I'm just talking about, in terms of a stakeholder, what do you have to gain and what do you have to lose. So they said, okay, that's why from 7 years they cut it down to 3 very smartly. Why? In the next 3 years, Women's World Cup, that India Pakistan match can go out. That will go out. Final, there's, as you and I both know, there's no chance of Pakistan women making it to the final. So again, I'm not demeaning anyone. I'm just being very practical. So they know that. So at best, you lose one women's India-Pakistan game. That will be done in a hybrid model. BCCI said, oh, no problem. We'll do it. Not much to lose. The next big tournament, and that's a big tournament, 2026 T20 World Cup. That also comes into this 3-year period. But here's the twist. That T20 World Cup is jointly hosted by India and Sri Lanka. BCCI said, no problem. If that is the case, Pakistan matches can happen in Sri Lanka. Anyway, matches are going to be divided between India and Sri Lanka. They said, okay, you can have a situation where they don't come. So this is not going to be hybrid, by the way. So they've not even agreed to hybrid. They've allowed it to be played in the other country, the co-host, that is Sri Lanka. Again, India don't have nothing to lose on that front. So I think this is the smartest way of getting exactly what you want from the deal, absolutely what you want from the deal, and also give this false sense of satisfaction to the person sitting across the table, where he at least feels that he's got something. So what will happen, even from Pakistan's point of view, they knew that eventually they will have to do. They didn't have too much of a wriggle room to get exactly what they wanted. They put those demands, but they knew. But now at least they'll have a leg to stand on. So what will the PCB do? Now remember, Mohsin Naqvi is also their interior minister. So he's also part of the, he's also a politician. So he has to go and say something. So in a typical face-saving scenario, he'll go back and say that, listen, we agreed to the hybrid model. Okay, I'm guilty because initially I said no hybrid, but I've agreed. But we've also put our foot down and said, we will also play hybrid. That they asked for 7 years, and they've only got 3. Nobody will look into this detail. So 7 ka 3 hua. In that 3 also, as I mentioned, one is a T20 World Cup that is anyway going to be shared. One was the Women's World Cup, which India will gladly allow that one game to happen outside of India. So if I have to look at a win-win scenario, this is a win-win scenario for the BCCI. So they've got exactly everything they wanted, with making the negotiator or person sitting across the table realize that they've also got what they wanted, when in reality it's only one party that's won it all. So that's how the cookie has crumbled. That's how negotiations happen in the ICC. Pakistan has time to get back whether they are okay with this or not. And even if they were, I'm sure they were eager to accept it. But even if they were eager, they won't do it immediately. They would want to go back and show that, listen, they've consulted their government and come back. Even though, as I said, PCP and government are on the same page, same person, but at least they'll show that they've taken time, come back. It'll be sort of face saving for them as well. Not too bad. But then BCCI has got what they've got. The other thing is what I'm picking up, that Pakistan Cricket Board said that we wanted in writing that you agree to it. What I'm hearing is that nothing has been given in writing. Whether it happens 2 days later when Pakistan comes back by the BCCI, that's another matter. Even if it was to have happen in writing, as I said, nothing much for India or BCCI to lose. But if it does not happen in writing, who knows what happens when that Women's World Cup arrives, when that T20 World Cup arrives. The BCCI can very well say that we'll cross the bridge when we get to it. So that's how it's panned out, this entire fiasco. And I know that things have kept changing, but they've changed very little for the BCCI, changed a lot for the PCB. And finally, we get to hear from the ICC board. We haven't heard from them as yet because negotiations were on. Hopefully, by the time the negotiations are over, we get to know exactly the story that I've just narrated to you. On that note, I'm going to say bye-bye to you. I hope you enjoyed the content that we bring to you on Sports Today. And if you haven't subscribed, do subscribe to it. And yeah, take care. Bye-bye. Good night. Look forward to catching you in our coverage for the Pink Ball Test match in Adelaide.